This is a true story, not about visible miracles, not about signs in the sky, not about extraordinary events that defy the laws of nature, but about words. Words spoken with contempt. Words thrown to the wind as if they had no weight. Words that echo in the void and return in ways we never imagined. Because words have power. More power than we think when we let them escape our lips. This story has no perfect hero. It has no identifiable villain. It only has an ordinary man, like so many we know, like perhaps you yourself are. A man who believed in what he could see, in what he could touch, in what he could taste, and who discovered, in the hardest way possible, that not everything in life can be measured with rulers or calculated with formulas. His name doesn't matter. It could be anyone. It could be you. He was always like that, questioning since childhood. The kind of boy who asked why about everything, who didn't accept ready-made answers. He needed to understand the mechanism behind each explanation. At school, he was the first to raise his hand when something didn't make sense. Teachers sometimes admired him. Other times, they were annoyed, but he kept asking questions. He grew up like that, confident, self-assured, with intelligence that he himself recognized and that others constantly validated. He passed the university entrance exam without difficulty. He graduated with honors. He built a solid career. For him, life was a logical sequence of causes and consequences. You study, you pass. You work, you progress. You strive, you achieve. There was no room for mystery. There was no room for the inexplicable. And certainly there was no room for God. He liked to discuss, not aggressively, but intellectually. He liked to win debates with well-constructed arguments, precise references, impeccable reasoning. And when the subject was God, he felt even stronger, because there in that terrain, he had something that others didn't have, absolute certainty. Certain that there was nothing, certain that it was all human invention, certain that religious people were just weak people seeking comfort in fantasies. He said this, not with malice, but with conviction. He genuinely believed he was helping people by showing them reality. He said he had never seen anything, never felt anything, never experienced any kind of experience that could be called spiritual. Where's the evidence, he asked. And no one could answer in a way that satisfied him. For him, faith was an invention, a psychological defense mechanism, a support for those who couldn't cope with the harsh, raw reality of existence. The option of the weak, he thought. He never said those exact words aloud, but the thought was there, clear as water. Whenever someone spoke of God in groups of friends, at family lunches, during work breaks, he interrupted. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He didn't openly disrespect anyone. He smiled. That polite smile of someone who knows they're right. That smile that says, let me explain where you're wrong without needing to verbalize it. And he said aloud in a calm and rational tone, if God exists, let him prove it to me. The words flowed easily, like water running down a smooth surface, as if they had no weight, as if they were just clever phrases in yet another debate. Seriously, he continued, if there's an all-powerful, omniscient God who created the universe and cares about humanity, why doesn't he show himself? Why does he hide? Why does he leave people in doubt? And he listed the known arguments, the problem of evil, the incoherence of religions, the evolution of science showing natural explanations for phenomena previously attributed to the divine. Some laughed nervously. Others looked away, uncomfortable. Still others remained silent, not knowing what to answer. But he continued, because in the silence of others, he saw confirmation. He said that no one could prove anything, that everything was coincidence, that everything had an explanation if you looked carefully enough. Did he pray and get healed? Probably his body healed itself, as happens in many cases. Did he feel peace after praying? Placebo effect, autosuggestion. Did he experience something that seemed supernatural? Hallucination, mental fatigue, magic trick. For every story, he had an explanation. For every testimony, a counter-argument. And in saying that, he felt something close to pride. Not a petty pride, at least not in his perception, but the pride of being on the side of reason, on the side of truth, on the side of those who see beyond illusions. He thought he was above the need for faith. He thought he was in total control of his existence. And to a certain extent, his life was going well. Very well, actually. The days passed with predictable regularity. Monday, work, gym, simple dinner, a series before bed. Tuesday, important meetings, lunch with colleagues, more work, maybe a book at night. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Each day had its rhythm, its structure, its clear purpose. Weekends were for strategic rest, a little leisure, a little personal work. Time for hobbies that kept his mind sharp. Nothing unexpected happened. And when something came up outside of plan, he simply adjusted, reorganized, solved. No sign from heaven, no divine answer to his challenges. And that strengthened him even more. See, he thought, sometimes even saying aloud to himself, nothing happens, because there's nothing up there. Each day without an answer was further proof, in his mind, that he was right. He had publicly challenged God, repeatedly, and nothing happened. No lightning strike, no sudden illness, no tragedy. If God existed and cared, he reasoned, he certainly wouldn't let someone challenge him like this repeatedly, without consequence. Divine silence was for him the greatest proof of divine non-existence. Life went on as normal, better than normal. Actually, work was going well, a promotion on the horizon, recognition from superiors, stable relationships, longtime friends, family that, despite some differences of opinion, maintained healthy ties, impeccable health. He had never had serious problems, not even a hospitalization in adulthood, organized finances, growing investments, guaranteed material security, everything under control. He had built this with work, with intelligence, with planning. He didn't need luck. He didn't need miracles. He didn't need prayers. He only needed himself. And that was comforting. He proved once again his point. You don't need God to have a good life. Conversations, debates, an intellectually stimulating routine. He was respected in his circle, known as someone intelligent, articulate, reliable. Of course, some found him arrogant. Some avoided discussions about religion when he was present, but that didn't bother him. People avoid what makes them uncomfortable, he thought. They avoid questioning their own beliefs because they're afraid of what they'll find. He wasn't afraid. He had certainties, everything under control, until one day the control slipped. It wasn't something supernatural. It wasn't a voice from heaven or a mystical vision or an event that defied the laws of physics. It was something common, terribly common, something that happens to anyone, anywhere, at any time. Something we all know can happen, but that we always think will happen to others, never to us. A serious problem, unexpected, sudden, relentless. The specific details don't matter so much. It could be health-related. It could be financial. It could be professional or family-related. But the effect is always the same. The ground disappears beneath your feet. For him, it was something health-related. It started with minor symptoms, which he ignored because he was strong, because he was healthy, because his body had always functioned perfectly. Then it became harder to ignore. A doctor's appointment. It's probably nothing, but let's investigate. Tests. Some worrying results. Let's do more tests. More tests. We need to talk about the options. And then that moment that divides life into before and after, the diagnosis. I won't describe exactly what it was, but it was serious. The kind of thing that can't be solved with willpower or intelligence or planning. The kind of thing that brutally reminds you that you don't have as much control as you thought. He tried to maintain his composure. He tried to approach the problem as he approached all others, with logic, research, and planning. He read everything he could about the condition, scientific articles, statistics, available treatments. He spoke with multiple doctors. He sought second and third opinions. He reorganized his life around the treatment. Spreadsheets, timelines, to-do lists. He tried to pretend that everything was fine, that it was just another problem to be solved, another challenge to be overcome with method and determination. But it wasn't. And deep down he knew, because for the first time in his life, he had no answer. He had no argument that would change reality. He had no logical reasoning that would alter the diagnosis. He had no clear, guaranteed, controllable way out. Would treatments help? Maybe. Statistics showed chances, not certainties. Would he get better? Possibly, but also possibly not. For how long? No one could say precisely. For the first time, all the variables were out of his control. Fear appeared, not explosively like in the movies, but silently, gradually, insidiously. It entered slowly, like water seeping through a tiny crack. And it stayed. It grew. It occupied spaces he didn't even know existed within him. Fear of pain, fear of loss, fear of the unknown, fear of not being prepared, fear of having wasted time, fear of having lived wrong, and worse, fear of being alone. Completely, utterly alone in all of this. His friend visited. Of course. Family called regularly. Colleagues sent messages. But at the end of the day, when the lights went out and the silence of the night arrived, it was him, alone, with the problem, with the fear, with the uncertainty. And no amount of logic could dispel that feeling. That particular night, he stayed awake, not by choice. He simply couldn't sleep. His body was exhausted from the treatment. His mind was exhausted from the constant worry. But sleep wouldn't come. The room was dark, only the faint light of the digital clock marking the passing hours. 11:47 p.m., 12:15 a.m., 1:33 a.m., 2:48 a.m. The silence was heavy. Not that peaceful silence that invites rest, but that oppressive silence that amplifies every thought, every fear, every regret. And without realizing it, the thoughts began to repeat themselves, like a scratched record playing the same part of the song over and over again. The words returned. If God exists, let him prove it to me. But now they sounded different, completely different. They didn't sound intelligent. They didn't sound brave. They didn't sound rational. They sounded empty, hollow, arrogant in a way he had never perceived before. He wondered something he had never allowed himself to wonder before, something his pride had always blocked. What if I'm wrong? It wasn't a philosophical question. It wasn't an intellectual exercise. It was genuine, raw, terrifying. What if there is something beyond what I can see and measure? What if those people I ridiculed are right? What if God exists and I challenge him repeatedly, publicly? Pride tried to react. That familiar inner voice, which had always protected him, tried to make itself heard. That's weakness. You're just scared. It's normal to seek comfort in difficult times, but it doesn't mean it's real. You're regressing. You're falling into the trap you always criticize in others. Keep your head. Keep your logic. But exhaustion spoke louder. Tired of pretending to be in control. Tired of carrying everything alone. Tired of being strong when you don't feel strong. Tired of being alone in that oppressive silence. For the first time in decades, he didn't want to prove anything. He didn't want to argue. He didn't want to debate. He didn't want to be right. He just wanted help. He didn't know how to ask. He had never needed it before. Or maybe he always needed it, but never recognized it. He didn't know how to pray. He had never learned. He never thought it was necessary. He always considered it a useless exercise. But he spoke. In the darkness of that room, alone, scared, humiliated by his own fragility, he spoke, without technique, without pretty phrases, without rehearsed words or memorized verses. He spoke as one who no longer has the strength to pretend. He said only in a hoarse whisper, "If the Lord exists, I don't know what to do." Long pause, trembling breath. "I've spent my whole life saying I don't need you, that I don't believe in you, that you're an invention." Another pause. "But I'm scared, and I don't know what to do, and I can't stand being alone in this anymore." The words came out awkwardly, broken, honest in a way he had never been honest before. "I don't know if I deserve it. I don't know if I should ask. I don't even know if I'm talking to someone or just to the void." Tears began to fall, silent at first, then stronger. "But if you exist, please, I need someone. I can't stand being alone anymore." There was no immediate answer, no audible voice, no supernatural light, no tangible presence. But something happened, something subtle, something internal, something that cannot be measured or proven, but that was real. His breathing, which had been rapid and shallow, slowed. The tightness in his chest, which seemed to crush his ribs, lessened. The tension in his shoulders, carried for weeks, began to loosen. And for the first time in days, maybe weeks, he cried. He didn't cry from fear, although the fear was still there. He cried from relief. Relief at finally letting go, at not having to be strong, at not having to have all the answers. Relief at not being, perhaps, as alone as he thought. There was no physical miracle that night. The diagnosis didn't change. The symptoms didn't disappear. But something changed in him. Something fundamental. A door he had kept locked his whole life began to open. Just a crack, but enough for something to enter, or for him to finally get out of where he was trapped. In the following days, the problem didn't disappear. The treatment continued. The side effects too. The uncertainty about the future remained. But he changed. Not drastically, not overnight in a miraculous transformation, but gradually, subtly, profoundly. He began to notice things he had never noticed before. The kindness of a nurse who always had an encouraging word. The care of the doctor who, in addition to treating the disease, treated the person. The support of the family who, despite all past disagreements, were present. The friends who didn't have answers but offered their presence. He began to understand that perhaps God didn't answer in the way he always demanded. Not with spectacular signs, not with scientific proof, not with demonstrations that satisfied his need for empirical evidence, but through small things, subtle things, easily ignored if you're not paying attention. An inexplicable peace in moments of pain. A strength that didn't come from him when he no longer had his own strength. Synchronicities that could be coincidence, but that seemed carefully orchestrated. He timidly began to pray again. Not elaborate prayers, not complex rituals, just conversations. Honest, simple. "Thank you for another day. Help me get through this. I don't understand what's happening, but I trust I'm not alone." And surprisingly for him, it did help. Not magically, not by eliminating the suffering, but by making it bearable. He no longer spoke arrogantly about God. He no longer issued challenges. He no longer debated to win. When someone mentioned faith, he listened. He really listened, instead of just waiting for his turn to speak. When someone shared a spiritual experience, he no longer automatically dismissed it as an illusion. "I don't know," he began to say, and he discovered that it was okay not to know. He realized that faith is not proof. It's not a mathematical equation. It's not a replicable scientific experiment. It's surrender. It's trusting when there's no certainty. It's believing when there's no visible evidence. It's continuing when there are no guarantees. And this, paradoxically, requires more courage than the skepticism he had always practiced. Because it's easy not to believe. It's safe. It's comfortable. It puts you in control. But surrender, trust, have faith, that requires vulnerability. And vulnerability was what he always avoided. He understood something simple yet profound. God doesn't need to be provoked. He doesn't need to prove anything to anyone because he is not on trial. We are. It is not God who needs to reveal himself according to our demands. It is we who need to open ourselves to the possibility of his presence. And pride doesn't sustain anyone in difficult times. Intelligence doesn't cure diseases. Logic doesn't dispel fear. Arguments don't fill the void. But faith, somehow inexplicably, does something. Not always in the way we want. Not always when we want. But it does. The months passed. The treatment had its ups and downs. Moments of hope alternated with moments of despair. But he continued, one day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour at a time. And he continued praying. Sometimes giving thanks. Sometimes asking. Sometimes just venting, honestly, without filters. I'm tired. It hurts. I don't know if I can take it anymore. And somehow, after each prayer, came the strength to continue. Not necessarily physical strength, but strength of spirit, determination that didn't come from within. He timidly began attending a small faith group, not a large church, not a spectacular event, just ordinary people gathering to share, pray, support. At first, he felt out of place, like an imposter, like someone who didn't deserve to be there. After all, he had spent years ridiculing exactly that, but he was received with kindness, without judgment, without "I told you so," without arrogance from someone who had always had faith, just acceptance. And that broke something in him. It broke the last resistance, the last barrier of pride. He cried again, but this time, not alone in the dark, surrounded by people, hands on his shoulders, words of encouragement, sincere prayers. He felt, perhaps the first time in his life, part of something bigger than himself. His vocabulary changed. He no longer used, "if God exists." He began to say, "when God showed me," or "what God has taught me." Not because he had seen spectacular miracles, but because he had experienced constant presence. His posture in debates changed completely. When someone questioned God, he no longer jumped to defend or counter-argue. He listened. He understood, because he'd been right there before. "I understand you," he'd say. "I thought that way too. And I'm not going to try to convince you of anything. But I can share my experience if you want to listen." And he did share, not with the arrogance of someone who discovered the truth, but with the humility of someone who'd been broken and rebuilt. Some listened. Others rolled their eyes, thinking he had given up or become weak. And he understood the reaction, because that's exactly how he would have reacted before. Today, he listens more. He talks less. And he never repeated that phrase again. "If God exists, let him prove it to me." Because he learned that God doesn't have to prove anything. He learned that the proof, when it comes, is personal, intimate, non-transferable. He learned that you can't demand from God what you demand from a scientific experiment. Because God is not an object of study. He is a subject of relationship. His health? It improved, gradually, with a lot of treatment, a lot of effort, a lot of medication. Was it a miracle? He believed so, even if doctors explain it in scientific terms. For him, each small victory, each exam with a better result, each day with less pain, it was an answered prayers. Not because God changed the laws of nature, but because God works through them. He works through dedicated doctors, through medicines developed by scientists, through attentive nurses, through present family members. He didn't become a religious fanatic. He didn't abandon reason. He didn't stop questioning. He didn't stop being intelligent or critical, but he tempered all of that with humility. Humility to recognize that there are things beyond human comprehension. That mystery is not the enemy of knowledge. That faith and reason can coexist, and that sometimes the most rational thing to do is to recognize the limits of one's own rationality. Perhaps you have already said something similar, out of revolt, out of pain, out of frustration with life, with religion, with people who disappointed you in the name of God. If God exists, why does he allow this? If God is love, why is there so much suffering? If God is powerful, why doesn't he act? These are legitimate questions. Questions that every thinking person is asked at some point. There is nothing wrong with questioning. God is great enough for your questions. But there is a difference between questioning with humility and challenging with arrogance, between seeking understanding and demanding explanations, between honest doubt and proud skepticism. Challenging God is not courage. It is not a sign of superior intelligence or elevated rationality. Sometimes it's just a cry for help that doesn't yet know how to pray. It's a cry disguised as an argument, a search disguised as rejection, because it's safer to reject than to risk believing and being disappointed. It's easier to deny than to admit you need something you don't control. Be careful with the words you utter. Not because God will punish you for challenging him. God is not an insecure tyrant who reacts to provocations, but because words have power over those who speak them. Every time you declare God does not exist with absolute certainty, you close yourself off a little more to possibility. Every time you ridicule someone else's faith, you harden your own heart a little more. Every time you demand proof according to your conditions, you limit where and how you can find answers, because some return in silence, not in the noise of debates, not in the heat of discussions, not in the brilliance of winning arguments, but in silence, in the silence of the early morning when you are alone with your fears, in the silence of the hospital when everyone is already left, in the silence of loss when there are no words to console, in the silence of failure when all your certainties crumble. It is in this silence that many finally listen. They listen to what has always been there, but which the noise of pride muffled. They listen to the gentle voice that does not compete with their arguments, but waits patiently. They listen to the call they always ignored. You don't play games with God, not because he will punish you, but because you can lose years, decades, closing yourself off from what could have given meaning to your life. Not because he is small and fragile, but because you can become too hardened to receive what he offers. Not because it is dangerous to challenge him, but because it is tragic to waste time fighting against the only thing that could complete you. This story is not about organized religion. It's not about which church to attend or which doctrine to follow. It's about a man who lived closed off and discovered himself open, who lived in certainties and discovered mystery, who demanded proof and received presence. Perhaps it's your story too. Perhaps you are the one who challenges, who questions, who demands, or perhaps you know someone like that. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for dedicating these minutes of your life to listening to this story. Thank you for opening your heart to reflect on something you may never have thought about before. If the story touched you in any way, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave your comment below telling us what you felt. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and activate the bell. Because every week I bring real stories like this one. Stories that transform, that teach, that make us stop and think. May God bless your life. And may you never forget, some lessons we only learn when we stop to listen Until the next video.